America's our second biggest market, and obviously the whole tariff thing. So that's massive, right? Like the whole war thing that Trump started, 145% tariff on a product. That's just put a halt to people selling stuff in the States.
We're here. Welcome to the Ride Companion. Today we've got Ben Smith. Round of applause. Hey!
And the crowd goes wild.
For no reason whatsoever.
I'm hyped for this one, dude. Genuinely. We've not done like a more businessy focused entrepreneurial journey episode for ages.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I like that sometimes we just mix it up a little bit. So this is, I feel like, mixing it up a little bit.
Cool.
You're someone early on as well that was like a story that I really thought was cool. I've never achieved anything in my life in terms of entrepreneurship. I've always loved the idea.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing your story really early on.
Yeah, well, we met quite a few times, didn't we, over the trade shows and stuff, and you do all the DMR stuff, and likewise of like, you're a bit too young to be a hero, so I'm not going to call you a hero, but still, you're a hero.
I'm stoked I'm young, man. I'm stoked I'm young. But your story definitely resonated with me. I think what it was like, we'll go into this properly, but like I would visit Troy Lee in America. It just all felt, it was before internet. You didn't get to see much of this stuff, and there was the story of this guy who from England, that worked at Troy Lee and then moved on and done his own thing. And it was just like, it was such a cool story. I remember thinking it back then that you can actually, like, I love ideas. I like coming up with ideas, but actually taking one through and making it happen is pretty sick. And now we're down the line. And how many years is that?
So we launched Hiplok, the original product, in like 2011.
Yeah.
And like you say, I was John, my co-founder. He was, based in England. I was working for Troy, and as you guys know, like that area of Southern California is just awash with activity, entrepreneurship, cool stuff. Troy, mega hero, sorted me out because I'd been in the bicycle industry before, had a chance to move to Cali, saw that they had a job going, kind of applied for it, but I didn't exactly know when I was going to be there. So they were pretty patient as well. Got there, interviewed at Troy, classic Troy, and some of the guys. Pulled a couple of all-nighters, like you do, and you like to do what they asked me to do a good job. Sent it to them, and I didn't hear from him for about a week. I was like, blown that then, haven't I? And then classic Troy, he calls me and goes, "Oh, hey, sorry, man, I broke my arm racing motocross. But I want to meet for breakfast." And we met for breakfast, and he gave me the job, and we were sort of rocking for a good few years. And then one day I was looking at, I think we'd been for doing some work for Oakley at the time, like special edition eyewear and stuff. I was driving back in the car with him. I'm like, I was that kind of age where I was like, I love working. This is like a dream job, right? I get to design mountain bike gear. I get to ride every day, but I still had this burning ambition to sort of start my own thing. Yeah. And like you say, idea is one thing, but actually going for it and sort of starting a brand and a company. And John, my co-founder, we'd always talked about different ideas. And this one that became Hiplok was just like, I know the industry, the product solves a problem. I want to use the product. And that was how it started, basically.
God, so cool.
Yeah, story. But cool. Troy was awesome. I mean, he helped me get work visas. Still great friends today. He's like, a legend in my eyes.
So where did it all start? To get through all of that, you're already quite far into your journey at that point. Where did it all start in terms of biking, in terms of working in the industry? Well,
I was always a mountain bike geek, as we all, back in the MBUK days. Like I was just thinking on the drive down here, actually, like I remember one day, because remember when it was just on, you could only find it on Eurosport, right, downhill.
Yeah.
And like back in the day when that sort of Steve Pete was before his GT, contract, he was riding for MBUK. And I remember we bunked off school one day just when he got that second place. I think he was riding for MBUK, like single crown GT LTS. And we just we binned off half the day, me and my mate, to watch it. It wasn't even live, but it was the only bit of mountain biking on TV.
To watch it now.
Yeah. So yeah, always a mountain bike geek. And then I wanted to do design at uni, and I was quite into sort of planning to do like transport design, which is pretty niche, but like literally car design, right? But I wasn't mega good at art, and I was going to do like art foundation. And then I think maybe my mum or my dad like suggested, what about more like product design? So I ended up doing industrial design, which is a bit more like engineering and design. Did that at uni. Actually met John, co-founder at uni. Did a few group projects. But what's cool about that is it does combine like engineering and design, which obviously is quite good from a bike industry point of view. And then did like a sandwich year, in the middle of uni, and was really lucky. Went and worked for a little design consultancy in France, in Lyon, and then did 3 months in the States working for a big sports firm. So I saw loads of interesting stuff in terms of design there, and realised that, I do want to get into the design industry.
What sort of stuff were you doing?
So the place in France was like a design consultancy that worked for other companies, like, I don't know, Tefal and stuff, like making irons. But it was just at the time, remember the brand K2? They had K2 kickboard. They had the 2 little wheels on front. They were doing the very first micro scooter for kids, remember? Which was obviously about to go ballistic.
Massive.
So I wasn't really working on the project, but there was a few K2 kickboards kicking around. So I just used to use that as my commuting device through the city. And
Were they
then
like skateboard ones?
Yeah, they were like
ones
the
that were like
skateboards, but they had like 2 wheels on front and like a stick.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And
It had
then
like a gear knob on it.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
And then then all the kids' micro kickboards are basically a plastic version of that, basically.
I
So that was
do
really
remember
cool. And then I went and did a 3-month placement at Reebok in the States, and that was really interesting because they'd just moved head offices, so it was like out in the sticks. So I used to ride my mountain bike. Like, obviously, you know what America's like, everybody commutes in a car, but it just so happened there was a train line. So I used to get on my mountain bike in the city in Boston and get the train, and like I'd have a couple of mile trail ride into the office. That was really interesting as well.
So with those placements, what were they like?
Yeah.
I've never done any of that.
So it's just the degree that I did encourages like a sandwich year.
Yeah.
So they call it a sandwich year. You basically work in industry. But I was lucky that I managed to sort out these 2 different placements. Because obviously, little design consultancy in France versus a big corporate in the States. I got quite an interesting view of the differences.
Yeah.
It was pretty inspiring. And then out of that year later, I finished uni and was like, I kind of want to get a job in the bike industry. And Pashley. Yeah. Well, you remember when Pashley had they were doing BMXs and sort of hardtails for a bit, and I called the guy at Pashley, and he's like, we haven't really got any jobs, but they bought Brooks, Brooks, the leather saddles and all that. Yeah. He was a part owner of them, and he said, do you fancy doing a bit of a placement to see what we could do with the brand and stuff? I was like, yeah, cool. So I did that, moved down to the Midlands.
That's kind of a dream project, right?
Yeah.
It's actually like a cool heritage brand.
Massively.
They got the post bikes,
I was
haven't
gonna
they?
say Pashley with post bikes,
Yeah, Pashley made all the post bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
Really cool, made in England. And
The logo
Tone
was
Brothers.
badass. Was it like a TV, the logo?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
That was more. That was their like mountain bike. Were you involved in that?
No, I wasn't really involved in the Pashley
Okay.
thing at all, but I loved it. I loved, and not long after, I think the whole kind of Pashley BMXy mountain bike thing kind of finished and died. But I was working for Brooks, and at the time, I didn't know this at the time, but they were Selle Royal, who are the big Italian saddle guys, the guys that have Physique brand and all the different brands. They were coming in to buy Brooks, and I just happened to be there at the right time. And, young English kid, all of a sudden I was like flying to Italy every couple of weeks, meeting with all the, having meetings with the owners and the marketing, and then being in this factory in Birmingham where they make the stuff. So I saw this crazy, all the manufacturing side and the sort of brand marketing and production side. So I was there for 3 or 4 years, and they wanted me to move to Italy, and I didn't really want to at the time. So I checked out the bike industry for a while and did footwear design, and then did a bit of travel, and then we had the opportunity to move to the States, and that's where the whole Troy thing happened. So I'd done quite a bit in the bike industry, like you say, before Troy.
I'm always like really interested in entrepreneurial spirit and where it comes from. Is there a history of it in your family? And
I think, it's
what do
really...
your parents do that?
Yeah,
time?
not at all in my parents, but my generation behind, my granddad on my mum's side, turns out he was a bit of an entrepreneur. He basically, sort of working class background, and he basically decided to go and move to Africa and build like a building firm.
Okay.
Just a little,
Wow.
so sort of upsticked and just out. I mean, back in the I don't know, when was that? Sort of 50s, 60s.
Wow.
What?
So he, and then my granddad on the other side had sort of hotels and stuff, I think, a little bit. So yeah, there was, but in my direct my direct parents were normal, just normal sort of 9-to-5 jobs and stuff.
Right.
But I remember saying to my mum as a kid that I wanted to have my own business by the time I was like 25.
Did you ever do anything when you were young? Like
No, not at all.
Really?
I was not one of those kids that was like selling sweets out there. You know what I mean? None of that. Yeah. It was more driven, I think, probably John as well, more driven by wanting to launch our own product and brand than, the sort of the business side. You obviously have to make work in order to do that. And yeah, we're dead lucky. We've got my wife Fran joined Hiplok early doors, and we've got a great little team.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's peaks and troughs. Like when you start your own business, obviously there's a lot to think about.
No way. Yeah, for sure.
So you moved to Troy Lee.
Yeah.
What were you doing there?
So at the time, back if you remember, and we still get it to this day, right? You get the whole sort of wacky motocross gear, all the rest of it. But but it was the time when Sam Hill was dominating. All the motocross gear was like
polka dots.
Yeah, in the sort of, because Troy's you forget, but he's such a leader in that field. So yeah, the polka dot, all that stuff. But it was basically my job to go, right, we've got this amazing thing in downhill, but actually, trail bikes were getting better, right? Sort of mid to long travel trail bikes. That whole sort of fusion of, it's not downhill or cross country. There's this whole bit in between. So they didn't really have much good trail riding stuff. A1 help. They didn't have a non-full face helmet. So it's sort of my job to start getting some of the trail riding stuff and a bit more bicycle focused stuff. Because when I got there, I just assumed that there'd be loads of bike geeks sort of in the business, but it was massively moto focused actually.
Right.
Yeah.
The guys that did bicycle were few and far between really. Obviously Troy does both, right? And he had been forever, hence the development of the mountain bike stuff. But yeah,
didn't have an identity, did it? It was like an add-on. Because I remember every brand, Troy wasn't unique in
No.
Every brand was just, you were wearing moto kit, weren't you?
Yeah. And I learned a few years later, the guy called Mike, who'd been with Troy forever.
Redding.
Mike Redding, yeah. And he was telling me, the motocross thing, from a Sam Hill point of view, apparently, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but he was wearing a knee brace for a race, but he didn't want any of the riders to know he had a knee brace, so that's where he wore a set of motocross pants, and then obviously it just became became a trend. Don't quote me on that, but that's why I did. Yeah. I've just quoted myself. But so all of that stuff was really interesting.
Wow.
And then suddenly you're in it and get to meet loads of heroes. And Troy, they wanted me in the business because I was sort of a designer, but also rode bikes and sort of knew the bike industry a bit. But then there'd be days when you'd like John Tomac would walk in and Troy would be like, "Hey, do you know who this is?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's John Tomac." You know what I mean? It's brilliant.
So just to unwind a little bit, because I'd really like to know. So the job that you went for, what actually was it?
It was bicycle. I mean, my title was kind of bicycle design director. So but literally kind of taking stock of what we had and going, right, actually we need some proper stretch like shorts. We need some tops. I did all the sprint gear, which was like sort of in between, because obviously motocross pants, they've got big patches of leather and stuff, right? So you don't get burnt. So you don't need any of that stuff on a bike. So suddenly it was about taking those, looking at the materials, getting some stretch and lightweight stuff into that. And then working with guys like Mike Redding and the guys that actually design the helmets. So, it was wicked. Like when we did the A1 helmet, the original sort of trail helmet, Troy gave the guys ages to do that helmet. Like in a lot of companies, you wouldn't have that amount of time, but you just wanted it to be right.
Okay.
And that's what's really cool about, and we try and do that in our design as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I was sort of, he just kind of led that charge a bit. And again, with the D3, you know, that took it way beyond what full faces were at the time.
Yeah, I think,
you know, made it a lot more stronger, more motocross, because you know Troy, he'd say stuff like, well, you know, you're way more likely to hit a tree riding a mountain bike, you know, at 40-50 mile an hour than you are hitting something on a motocross bike.
I love thinking back like this, because I think I was in a similar industry as well myself. So I was at One Industries, which was quite a competitor to Troy Lee at the time. And it was like interesting watching them go through the same thing of like starting to introduce bike and getting away from the athletes that they sponsored just wearing moto kit. And also when you were at Troy Lee, I think I was in America, so that's pretty cool. So I'd come and check out the do tours around.
Come see what we're doing.
I worked at, I wasn't at One then. I wasn't at One. It's before. So I used to work at a place called MX Heaven, which is like a motocross holiday destination. So we used to do tours to Troy Lee and show people around.
We would probably like literally walk past each other in the reception or whatever.
So it's interesting. And thinking back, you know, to even when Troy Lee launched like the first moto helmet that they did, was just, I mean, that's way before then even. That's probably 04, something like that. And just how ahead of its time it was.
Totally.
And like how fucking sick it was.
Yeah.
Like everyone wanted that helmet.
Yeah.
It was so
well,
cool.
even like, you know, those certain people like just will be ahead of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So like, and I was, you know, I was probably more in the camp of what the fuck is this? When the e-bike revolution sort of started, Troy was early doors. Like it was almost more like a cross country sort of trail bike, you know, specialized. And I was definitely in the camp of, come on. And he was like, well, you know, people used to think gears were cheating. You know what I mean? Like, and like fast forward to where we are now, that was good. You know, it was probably good 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, you can just zoom out if you've been in it for that long.
Exactly.
You can just see it a bit more.
Yeah,
I guess.
No,
I'm not saying I can.
You totally can.
So
So I think and we try and take that with sort of Hiplok and what we do as well. It's not like it's thinking about solving a problem as to where it's really at versus kind of what can be done and what can't be done. Like, you know, all of our anti-angle grinder stuff with our locks, that was a massive issue, right? You got kids running around with these battery operated angle grinders, and everybody else, it was a bit of a sort of a no-go area because everybody knew that they could cut through. You know? But we had the opportunity to kind of step it on a bit from a security point of view and take a bit of a risk as well, because that was a whole new genre. And obviously it's more expensive to make, so you've got to charge the customer more. But a bit like a D3 or something, if you can see how much better it is, people get it. You know, and we're willing to pay for something that's that much better. I think it's when, you know, stuff is basically much of a muchness, and it's, you know, that's when they're kind of like, why am I paying more for this?
So you said at the start you were driven by having a brand. But there must have been a moment at your desk in Troy Lee that you thought, you must have had a product in mind.
Well, basically, John, like what became Hiplok, the original wearable lock was John had a little baby boy, and he'd taken him on his bike on a like bike seat.
We've got to lock him up.
So he wanted to lock his kid up with his bike. But basically this particular bike with the bike, he took it round to his mates one time, didn't lock it up outside the house, and the bike got nicked.
Right.
And then he had the idea for this sort of lock that you could just, you know, sort of put around your waist, because like people in San Francisco and London were doing that already, but it wasn't designed for purpose. It's a bit sort of all the stuff dangling off and a bit unwieldy. So we thought, actually, I think we can design something that takes that inspiration but works properly. And that was the start of it. So, and then Hiplok the brand was kind of a descriptive name to start with. You know, but we got a bit of static from, you know, because remember it was the time of hipsters and stuff. Oh, it's a hipster lock. It was like, wasn't at all. It was like a really good strong lock, and that's why I designed the logo to be quite strong, even though it was hip. But it became a brand, umbrella to kind of innovate in security. So that's kind of how it kicked off.
Again, going back to when I first heard your story, I loved the idea. I always really liked the idea of really simple product ranges. You probably do now that you don't have a simple product range. But at the start, it must have been cool to have just this kind of single product that you've really dialed and really like gone through, and then that's it. That's your list. You've got different.
Exactly, and actually, you're dead right, because one of the dangers sometimes is suddenly trying to do too many things. So we've definitely, John, on our motto, one of the mottos is keep it simple, stupid. Right? Just do certain amount of stuff really well, rather than try and be everything to everyone. But yeah, that like all products, not every product works for everybody. But if it's really well considered and solves a problem, and you like using it and you want to use it, because I remember it like being in Laguna where I lived when we lived in working for Troy. We would we'd send prototypes to each other, because obviously John was based in Windsor actually. And it was just when Skype was kicking off and stuff, so we'd be talking on Skype in the morning, like holding up prototypes to each other. I'd be trying them out, and just being able to get on your mountain bike and just cruise into town, bunny hop a curb, do a bit of a manual without some lock rattling off your bike or whatever. And I remember vividly sending the prototypes back to John to do some more work on. Then I didn't have it. I'm like, I was really gutted that I didn't have it. And I think that's that is a good feel for. Yeah, you've got a good product when you're like, shit, I really want to use this, and it's not here.
Where's my Hiplok? Or you start referring to it as what it is. It's not. It's no longer just a chain that you've put a thing on to make it fit for purpose.
It gets his own identity.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Why John?
John. Well, as I say, we met at uni.
Yeah.
He's a really good designer, really good engineer, and we were just sort of mates really, and we both just had a kind of, right, let's do it,
So you're living in the States.
Yep.
He's living in Windsor.
Yep.
This is at a time when the internet was a thing, but
no, it was like literally Skype was like, who uses, Skype's brilliant, but who uses Skype now? Right?
Yeah, it was great.
So it was that time of that kicking off, and actually Hiplok's the brand name, but our company name we set up was +8 Industries, because it was 8 hours difference between UK and California. So like I'd be getting up, and we'd have to, in a classic start, we're still both doing our day jobs, still committed to our day jobs massively. So we'd have to like speak early doors in the morning or at lunchtime and at night. So, he'd have finished his day and I might be starting mine, or vice versa. So, and then, when you start in a company and you've just suddenly put in a PO for bits, everything gets quite serious at that point, right? So I remember there's a few like lunchtime calls where I'm like, oh shit, this isn't not quite working out. But yeah, I loved my day job as well, but we just knew that we wanted to do it.
Right. And
then there was one day where I had to sort of say to Troy, look, we're going to move back to the UK and give this thing a bit of a full tilt, full throttle. Yeah. And I felt it was a really weird mix of emotions actually, because Troy's done so much for me, but at the same time I was creating a company that was not in any way a competitor to what they did. It was just another company doing something completely different. And he was mega supportive, mega cool. And
so you kept in touch with John the whole time while you were out there?
Yeah, on and off. But weirdly, a lot of our conversations would be based around sort of ideas and design ideas. It's like a common thread that sort of went through our relationship. Yeah, still does to this day. Yeah. Yeah, but I remember we used to ride a bit of mountain bike to get John's not as much of a bike geek as me, but we'd still ride with some lads, sort of mountain bike rides, more like the get an OS map and get lost in a field type mountain biking, old school, than like what you sort of more hitting the proper trails now. But we talked about like a telescopic seat post, right? Early doors, and this was before Crank Brothers had launched the original one stuff. And I was working for Cellar Royal at the time, and I was sort of trying to pitch this idea and think about it, and of course didn't do anything with it. And then a few years later, it's probably, in my opinion, the product that's changed mountain biking really, for the better, obviously. And that was, so when we were thinking about Hiplok, we did refer back to that moment. It's like, well, that was a product that we'd talked about. We thought it was a good idea. Never did anything with it. This one we're going to do something with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
So,
I think there's nothing better than a good design office where it's just complete freedom.
Yeah.
Where you can come up with an idea that actually seemingly is crap.
yeah.
But then you never know where it's going to go. It can
Yeah.
turn into something that's actually really good. I love it when you're with the right people and you're just like...
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've just been thinking about this a lot recently. Like, nothing's sort of, you know, people can go back any idea, right? Any new product. Oh, well, that was obvious. That was that's a good idea. It's only a good idea or good once it's happened, right? You know, obviously all the stuff like, you know, I mean, our phones now, right?
Yeah, true.
You're like,
Yeah.
You know, somebody had said, oh, well, I want, you know, camera. And, oh, mate, I just got a phone. I've got this digital camera. I've got my...
It's
You know
true.
what I mean? And now, like, where would we be?
Like
It's
e-bikes.
inconceivable, isn't it? You
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, e-bikes as well.
E-bikes, people
You
are
talk
like,
to the kids,
put a motor on a bike. You'd be like, nah.
Yeah, yeah. My kids are like, I think I showed them I found a cassette recently, and they were like, what? So you had to rewind it?
Debbie does Dallas.
Yeah. It wasn't VCR.
Oh dear. That's yeah, dude. What a crazy story, even up to this point of you and John creating this thing. Can we?
Yeah.
I want to touch on more Troy Lee stuff because I find that so
Yeah,
interesting as
sure.
well. If that's okay, I know we're going back and forth, but we'll do that after the ad break.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Ollie, love these ad reads, dude, because you know that we're going to help our companionship look after their pride and joy,
Absolutely.
their bike, all right,
Absolutely.
and maybe their health. Okay, so this bit of information about LAKA
Yep.
is about the collective insurance model. It's a brand new insurance model that's designed for riders. Okay,
Dude, absolutely. LAKA isn't just any bike insurance. It's bike insurance that's powered by a collective of riders who all have each other's back.
that's it. And a problem shared is a problem solved.
Is that the saying?
Yeah, it could
Something
be.
like that.
Yeah,
You're
it's
right,
like
you're
that,
right,
yeah,
right. They won't charge you a fixed sum. Instead, they calculate your monthly contributions up to a max capped amount. That's very important, up to a max capped amount.
Yeah.
That amount is based on the collective's claims.
Okay. All right. So basically what you're saying then is at the end of the month, the claims part is split fairly between all LAKA members who ride happy knowing their money is going to other riders, fixing, replacing and helping keep wheels spinning. Basically, you could say you can join the collective. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
A few more bullet points.
Okay.
You go from the top.
Okay, so protect your bike alongside other cyclists with cover that's simple, fair, and free from long contracts or fixed fees.
I like that because we don't like contracts, do we? We don't like fixed fees and we don't like monthly expenditure.
No, exactly.
So LAKA runs on a subscription model where everyone shares the costs fairly, so you only pay your part.
That's right, you pay your fair share. So each month we add up the claims costs, like stolen bikes or repairs,
Yep.
and split them amongst the collective. Again, that is capped.
Capped.
I think that's important, don't you?
It's really important
Yeah.
because if there's loads of thefts throughout a month, then
You won't get a massive bill.
No,
You
you
just get
still
the same
capped.
cap
You're
bill.
capped. Yeah. Your share is what you pay at the end of the month. The price might change, but will never go over a set limit. So there's a bit of reassurance there. Okay, not like water bills.
I love LAKA because they're built to pay out. And this
Built
is
to
one
pay.
thing that is so annoying about a lot of other insurance companies. What's great and unique about LAKA.
Yeah.
They're different from a traditional insurance. They earn a small fee only when claims are paid. So they're on your side when things go wrong. I always feel like insurance companies are working against you, don't you?
Totally. It's 100% what I think most people would think too.
I don't know why more insurance companies don't use this exact model.
It's very true. If you'd like to learn more, head to laka.co/TRC. We've got a brand new page on the website and use code RIDECOMPANION30. What is it?
Is that Ride Companion 30 all in caps?
That's all in caps. And we're going to give you on the house 30 days free cover, whether that's core or complete. 30 days on the house, courtesy of Olly and Davi.
What an amazing deal. laka.co/TRC for more. Thanks, LAKA.
Thanks, LAKA. So when you great ad break, by the way.
Yeah, it was all right.
Really good.
Loved it.
Good.
So when you started looking at developing a mountain bike range, it's like really hard to even conceive how you do that? Like,
Yeah.
what were you looking at? And you're almost like defining a whole genre of biking around that time as well, which would have been enduro. And
almost, I think a couple of things just they were kind of obvious straight away, right? So like some good trail riding shorts, like good ones that kind of look cool, that work, because that was like a glaring thing in the range that we didn't have.
Excuse my ignorance here as well, but other brands were already doing that, right?
Yeah, but not as much as everybody is now.
And when I say other brands,
yeah,
I mean like moto brands that were starting to enter the market is what I mean. Sorry.
Yeah,
I feel like Troy Lee were one of the first. Where
Yeah,
like,
I feel like
oh
this was
my
the start.
god, like this is what it needs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously the, I guess like, like say Fox and a few started, but it wasn't that much kicking around. Not good stuff, not sort of stuff that combined both attitudes.
Yeah,
And what
Lot of
knee
black.
pads look like, dude. Knee pads didn't look like knee pads were
No, it's true.
big
Shin pads,
knee
shin
pads.
and knee.
Shin and knee. They weren't
Yeah.
like comfy. You couldn't do long days.
Yeah.
No.
A lot of stuff wasn't fit for purpose actually. And like you say,
Yeah.
the dropper post made a big change.
Yeah.
And then with that, I kind of feel like
Well, yeah, I mean, a good example of that is, and because obviously and to be honest, it's one of the things I probably regret about my time at Troy. We were just about to do loads more protection, so they did it, but I wasn't. It was towards my end of my TLD career, which is another story I'll tell you about in a minute. But yeah, we used to, like at lunchtime, I used to ride with one of the lads at the office quite a bit, or after work. And you've probably ridden it, but there's a trail called like Skyline and stuff. So obviously I did like the Skyline jersey and stuff, but that was a trail where you'd ride up this fire road, dusty fire road for a good while, and then you would literally, stop, put your pads on, lower your seat post.
it's so funny.
You know what I mean? Go. And that was, and I love that riding, right, as well. And you'd probably have your full face hanging off your bars as you're going, because, it's like Southern California inland, like 90, 100 degrees, sweating buckets.
Wow.
And then you'd strap your stuff on and off you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're right. Like all that stuff developed that you don't have to stop. You're kind of wearing it all. Because
You wear it all day.
Yeah.
You wear it all day, yeah, with the stage knee pads or whatever. They're just like, and you forget that wasn't a thing. I remember just running like the downhill pads, and they were like double strapped.
Yeah.
They're perfect for a
What are
race
they-
run.
what are
Yeah.
they called?
You
I've
take them off, you drop.
Six-
Yeah, I've
611s, D3O,
I've still got
massive.
Yeah, I've still got boxes. Then what were they called? Yeah, really rigid though.
Yeah.
yeah. Basic big bit of plastic.
Yeah.
with a bit of foam in.
Yeah.
What the Lopes ones were they?
No, the Lopes ones were like you say. They had the knee cup and like the knee shin.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
white
With it,
and
and
black.
they had a neoprene thing that you could actually just run, just as like.
And they did eventually, didn't they?
Yeah,
They did
yeah,
like
yeah.
that sleeve thing, yeah. Which
Yeah.
I ran for a bit, but it didn't do much. So it's like,
No.
again, like everything actually has come on so much. When you think about it, it's come on crazy amounts.
Yeah.
I guess you've got a similar kind of thing. Okay, so with Troy, I always find it really interesting that he is, first and foremost, probably you consider him like an artist, right?
Yeah.
But then he's got this crazy focus on safety, which aren't two things that they're on the different side of the spectrum to me.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think the thing with somebody like Troy is that he's the classic entrepreneur enthusiast, right? So he thinks ahead and thinks like, well, what do I want to use and where, and that drives it. So he's I mean, a good example, like even when we'd go up to like Whistler and stuff, and he'd take his young kids, and he was kind of using like little comms so he could talk to his kids and stuff, and like we'd use it, and that actually is hilarious. It's not really it's not something that's kind of got into the mainstream, but
No.
like if you're blasting down a trail with a couple of people, right, say like whatever it is, and actually you can hear what other people are saying.
As a bear.
Yeah. Or like you crash, you know what I mean? Like it's things like that just add another layer, and that's that kind of inventiveness. But yeah, to your point, I remember again going back to D3, like it was big part of what he wanted to do was create like sort of a stronger helmet.
So the D2 was out by that point, wasn't it?
D2 had been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I resisted D3. I remember being like, dude, the D2, it's an iconic
Sickest,
shape.
Yeah.
And now you look at it. Like
Yeah.
I remember getting the D3 and being like, I don't like it as much.
Yeah.
And then you go like 6 months on, you're like, look at the D2.
Yeah. Well, I remember actually Palmer didn't like the D3 to start with.
Yeah.
He just because it was a small D2 is tighter, smaller. So yeah, he was because we did the Palmer edition on the D3, which looked mint.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he still wanted to run his D2, I think. Obviously, because he ran it for snowboarding and stuff as well, I think.
Yes.
Which is, you know.
Yeah. The do it
but
all
his
helmet.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to bring a D2 down. So we've got one here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I love a D2.
Yeah, I've got a few in my bike shed.
Fun, eh?
Yeah.
I've
I've got a
actually-
plain carbon one actually. That's my daughter's full
Really?
face. Yeah.
I've
Like-
got an edge actually.
Have
I've got
you?
an edge at my house, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Which is very cool looking, yeah.
Sick.
Should bring that as a prop.
Yeah.
So how did that process? And Ollie touched on something really interesting there. So you've developed like the range. Does Troy then come in? And it's like a Troy Lee advert.
Yeah.
It's
No,
so
no, no.
interesting though. Come in and add like the Troy Lee sprinkle. which is the
Depends what it
design.
was. Yeah,
Okay.
totally depends what it like. It's one of his favourite phrases was like you'd hear it a lot in the office when he's coming around to design. Make it 20% faster, man. Like, you know, like on the graphic or something. He's always like, you know, sort of like the speed thing is just inbuilt into his style.
Right.
And even for like a Euro, like, you know, they had this in SoCal, they sort of had this phrase, oh, that's a bit Euro. You know, so some of the stuff I did in the show, it's a bit Euro, that bit, you know, needs to be a bit more Cali, a bit faster. But actually, when you get the blending those things, right, obviously I detuned some of the stuff.
Okay.
Because, you know, so he's a big believer in like mild and we'd say like mild and wild, right? You know, so which I get, which I think is cool. You know,
Yeah.
sort of works. But yeah,
That's so
Make it-
interesting.
But you remember A1, it's like, it was up against, do you remember Urge, those helmets?
Yeah.
I don't want to like drop anyone
yeah.
under the
Well, that was
bus, but,
super
like,
with the
Euro.
circle.
When you talk Euro,
that was so Euro.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was like,
Yeah.
it was
it-
cool,
yeah.
wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
like when you saw them compared,
so
it had that like, it was like a marsh guard as the visor, wasn't it? And it had
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
that's
hole
it.
on the side. Yeah, funny
Yeah.
like little vent, there's like a porthole, and then you compare it to a TLD helmet, and it's just like,
yeah.
I know
mass-
which one I want to run.
Yeah, yeah,
put it
yeah.
that way.
And that's what they did in the moto helmet thing as well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you had like your RIs and things like that, which, yeah, right, really safe, functional, whatever. But then when I can't remember what the name of the Troy Lee one was.
SE.
Could have been your SE. It was
Yeah,
just like
SE3.
whoa.
I think. Yeah.
insane.
Then it
It
was
was so
SE4.
sick.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, yeah, it said they've always, yeah, mate, I've got so much history with all that stuff. Just been
Yeah.
a massive fan since I was
Yeah.
a kid, you know, even from getting the helmet fins and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just
Fins.
oh, it's the sickest thing. Amazing. All right, so time at Troy Lee.
Yeah.
What are some of the other stuff that happened there when you were there? Meeting people.
yeah,
you said
I mean,
you met
'cause
Tomac. And
I think because I was, although I'm sort of background designer, I've always been as much interested in sort of marketing and what else is going on in the business. So, you know, I think some designers, what I'd say more like pure designers than I am, and probably better designers than me, are very focused on just the design or the product. But I've
Function.
always liked all of it. So I did get involved in like some of the like rider stuff and remember, you know, like getting Seminole onto a proper TLD contract back in the day, and then things like things like sorting out Cam Zink's helmets for Rampage and stuff like that, going out to Rampage, which is, as you know, like unique experience.
Did you do there were extra pads on his helmet one year for, I think it was the Icon Sender Flip.
So I did. So the year that I was out there was the 2010 when I think it was called the Oakley Sender, and he did the massive 360 drop.
Spin, okay, that's the year
And that,
before, I think.
yeah, and that was the year that like G was out there, and I think came second off a big sort of like that big floaty sort of landing. But I mean, I always tell people this story when I talk about Rampage because TV never does that stuff justice, as you well know. But he'd like spent the time getting this designed this sort of custom helmet, and obviously that Spray Shop did it, and then Troy added a little bit more as, you know, Troy style. So got the Sprinter van, drove out from Cali. I was on my Todd as well, drove out from Cali out to Utah in the big Sprinter, and it's like windy, like flipping. So it's like got a 6 or 8 hour drive, right, whatever. And then got there, all the lads were starting to practice, and then finals day, you know, that thing at the time was massive. And he was doing this 360 drop, and he first run, he over rotated, I think, and smashed his head, properly smashed his head. Tore this visor off. It was like this brand new helmet that I've just presented to him in this bag, like, you know, like ripped off the visor and stuff. And then, and then the bit you don't see, sort of, I guess, on the TV was like, there's this massive crash. He gets checked out by the medical staff. I go off and find him another visor. So if you look at the photos from that, the visor doesn't have the paint job.
Oh, right.
You know, it's just a plain black visor. But then they sit up there. Then the wind came in. And he was sat up at the top of the hill for like 2.5 hours. And then it went, and he just stomped it second run. After being sat up cold, no practice, no...
That's the shocking thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Those, as just like, to an average rider like myself, you're like, respect.
Oh, dude, I think everyone listening can appreciate how much more wild that is. When you're in the moment and you're doing it back and forth, you can maybe achieve a bit more, like... It's easier to change something and stomp something. Yeah. But to just sit up there for 2 hours thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that landing was narrow. I remember it because Bingeli crashed. He did his femur on it. And it was like rocks down either side, like the landings are at Rampage. But it was so narrow compared to like today's landings.
Yeah, totally.
He's spinning off it.
Yeah. Completely blind. Because, when you go off, all you're seeing is basically sky. Like, getting the angle.
Yeah, I think Troy added some like external pads. I think he flipped off that one. I could get this all wrong, but I remember the helmet. It was a D3 and it had like external.
Really, maybe that was the year.
It was insane. It was a really crazy looking thing, and it was really like, whoa! Like if
he's really going for it.
Dude, if my helmet sponsor gave me one of them, I'd be like, you're planning for something here, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the thing with pushing the envelope. Sometimes you push it a bit far. Yeah, like.
Turn up with a Troy Lee Zorb. Yeah. There you go, mate.
Just bouncing down several miles down the hill.
So you're at Troy Lee, and then you have the idea for Hiplok.
Yeah.
What was that transition into leaving Troy Lee and then taking this thing?
It was to be honest, it was pretty wild, because you're sort of not only were we'd just had our first child, so she was born, and she's a lucky girl, she's got both passports, American, English. So we'd just had our first kid.
You got American passport?
No, I haven't, but my daughter has.
Because
she was born there.
Oh wow.
You wild man, you're like one of those people on Grand Designs who have kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they always do everything at once, and you're like, come on, man.
And now she's pregnant. We've got to get the house finished. Right,
So what was your first order? What did that feel like?
Oh, that was
big
mega.
Order.
Yeah, that was mega. So, God, who was the first order? I'll tell you what was pretty wild, actually, was because it's so different to now as well, because this was before social media and all the rest of it. You know, it was sort of, YouTube was like cutting edge, right? So I wanted to, and because I was a bike geek that always read magazines, I wanted it to be, if somebody saw a review in the magazine, they'd be able to buy it off our website straight away. Because sometimes you see new products, well, back in the day, you'd be like, I want one of those, and then you can't find it for several months. So I wanted it to be hit the ground running. But we were pretty ballsy. Like, looking back, we were pretty ballsy. We didn't have any orders from retailers or distributors when we put our first order in the factory. So if it had
Do you remember what you spent? Is that I think that's an interesting question.
Well, I can't remember exactly what we spent, but what we did do was, because John and I were both from a design background, we tried to de-risk it. So the way we designed the product, the way we even did the tooling, all of it, we were like, we wanted our first product to be manageable in terms of a startup business, because, you know, some businesses, they just need so much startup cash that the risk is so high. So it's still risky, right? It's still like, this is money that if it goes wrong, we're in a hole here.
And when you're talking about tools, it's probably quite gnarly tooling for a Hiplok. It was like the plastic buckle, I would imagine, was the biggest investment.
Exactly. Yeah. But then, so you've got, obviously, on one side, when you're doing a product, you've got your tooling, but then obviously you've got MOQs. So, and MOQs can really, that's where it ramps up very quickly, because, I don't know, say for argument's sake, you know, a factory won't supply you less than 3,000 or 5,000 locks.
Yeah,
you know, to get to a certain price, you need to be ordering certain quantities. You can't just kind of bang it up ones or twosies.
Yeah.
So that's the moment when you're sort of writing those very first POs. But we were dead lucky, you know. We on the strength of the product, we had some really good reviews early doors, and because bicycle industry is a bit international, you know, some of our first distributors and retailers weren't even in the UK. So we became an international thing quite quickly,
Right.
which really helped us balance the risk as well. And then started to get the retailers on board and stuff, and yeah. So that's
How did
kinda
you go about finding a manufacturer? What was that process like?
We had some really good links already.
Okay.
Because John was working for design consultancy and knew some good people that we could trust. Because that's a big thing as well. Because we didn't actually want to go to somebody that made stuff for our competitors, because we didn't want people seeing what we're up to until
Right, yeah.
it was out there.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit defensive strategy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we still worked with some of those guys today.
Right.
Like, we've had a really long-term relationship with them, so that's really
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you managed to do it quite a nice organic way, where you don't end up with a garage full of boxes
Yeah.
full of product that you're
Exactly.
losing hair over
Yeah,
selling, kind of thing.
Yeah, you always have those moments, but yeah, you know, you sort of hence the hat. No, but yeah, no, we were quite lucky in that respect. But you know, you've always got. We were just talking about the bike industry before. Obviously, you know, there's when you're making stuff. There's lead times, and you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. The world can. I mean, COVID, right? If you
Yeah.
remember that graph, it was like there was nothing available. And then everybody wanted a bike, and everybody was building a crap load of bikes. And then, you know, the COVID hangover kicked in. Everyone's got too many bikes, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's just, when you make stuff, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
You know, managing itinerary and stuff.
Now, when we're moving on to you having your business, do you feel like what was the biggest takeaways from working for Troy? Did you have any like things that you took away from that was super valuable?
Fantastic
Yeah. So some
question.
of those things I've not done a good enough job of actually putting in. But one of the things that Troy was really good at was still having fun. You know what I mean? Like, he's one of the best people. Like, he talk about burning the candle at both ends. Like, that guy's got more energy. Probably, I don't know how old is he now? He's probably 60 something, and
Yeah.
he's probably still got more energy than I'll ever have.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, flying to different cities for his motocross races, then he'll be presenting something, you know, going out to a party next days, and, you know, breakfast meeting, like, flat out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but one of the things he was really good at was still going, right, you know, I'm going for a ride. Who wants to come on a ride? And to be honest, one of my regrets is probably not riding enough while I've done my business. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
ride
think
more.
you go through those ebbs and flows though, don't you?
Yeah.
Because when it's really stressful,
Yeah.
you don't give yourself permission to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because
And
you
also,
chew
that's
in
the
it.
time when you probably need to go for
That's
a ride
when
the
you
most.
need it
That's the
more.
irony.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's easy for Troy, but at that
Yeah.
point, business
Yeah.
was no doubt doing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can enjoy it. Probably, I'm sure there's things
Yeah.
isn't there going on behind the scenes, but
Yeah, it's good to make a good routine, isn't it? He certainly seems like he's got a good routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you don't not see him at that cafe in Laguna and riding up in the hills, and
Yeah.
I think that's got to be healthy, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Regardless of whether it's good or bad.
Mm.
Yes,
You're always
yes.
just doing these things
Yeah, yeah.
that
Yeah.
tick off and make
Yeah.
good.
And also, that's that area, you know, like a bit like you and your sort of mates around this way, probably, you know, where you've got certain scenes where it's kind of, it's part of the scene. Do you know what I mean? Riding is a way of life, which I love, and I'm trying to do a bit more of that again now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, everyone picks each other up for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think I went through that stage, and obviously this isn't about me at all, but starting a business in the bike industry years ago with Hook It, I've got like a distribution company, well, manufacturing company now, but anyway, like, it was so stressful, and all I was doing every day was going into bike shops, talking about bikes. It's like the last thing I wanted was to see a bike.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like, that was like the cause of my stress
Yeah.
and anxiety and money worries and everything was a bike.
Yeah.
So then I didn't. Last thing I wanted at weekend was that.
Oh, totally get
Just
it.
Absolutely
Yeah.
get away from it at all.
So
I don't
that
even want to talk about it.
I was a bit like that with my time at Silly Royal when I said I didn't really want to move to it, because I was a young kid. I was like sort of early 20s, but I found myself in this quite senior position in
Right.
the business.
Yeah.
And I was stressed. I was like super duper stressed. And like you say, you associate your bike, your one thing you want to have a release with is the one thing that reminds you about your day job. So it's like this weird thing.
A lot of people talk about that a lot. I think in the bike industry, it's like making your hobby a job.
Yeah,
it's a really delicate balance.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, 100%. It can be for sure.
Yeah.
Like I've really managed to switch it around now.
Yeah,
but for years I didn't touch a bike for like 5 years.
Yeah,
because I just hated seeing it. I was just like, no, all I've done all week is talk about it.
And then suddenly you get on a good ride, and you can just like
It was quite recent for me as well. It was COVID.
Right.
Like, really. Yeah, it was like actually. You know, with the COVID thing, it was like the brakes were kind of like put on and you could just actually enjoy it for what it was.
Sure.
It wasn't on the road all the time. So I wasn't burnt out, and I just started going riding again. And I was like, whoa, I've really missed this. Like I'm energized for it again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, cool. Like remember those days when the roads were closed and actually families were out on the bikes on the roads and there's no traffic? I remember thinking to myself at the time, like, we need to remember this, like how good that was. And it suddenly just went all back to,
for sure.
You know, there's so much we could learn from that. I mean, I don't get involved. I feel bad. I don't get involved in any like planning and, you know, like with the councils and stuff, but like so much better when there's more people around. On bikes.
Definitely.
And stuff. Like,
yeah, definitely. I remember going out riding and just, I don't know, there was opposite my house where I live, there was, where I live now actually, there was a reservoir and they'd shut it, whatever. Don't need to get into the politics of that, but they closed this reservoir so people couldn't go, but you could get in through the back on a bike, and like nature had just taken over again, and it was just bliss. It's like it's exactly what I needed at that point in my life, was like to rediscover biking and being outside in nature again. It was like, oh, it's the best. So good. Changed everything.
Brilliant.
Totally. And honestly, like I think like doing this with Olly really helped as well, because like your infectious energy for biking just made me be like, oh yeah, actually I do really miss this again. Like,
he's all right.
It's okay. I am allowed to ride a bike and not be like stressed about it all the time.
So, I do hear you. It's a trap, isn't it? Actually, just growing up in general is, because it is what it is. Like you go out there, you're just like a dog with zoomies, and they're meant to have zoomies. That's how it's meant to be. They're meant to run around. We are. Biking's good, eh?
Yeah. We've just got a dog for the first time in our family. With the kids, and it's a whippet, and it's so funny you said about the zoomies, because that is what they do. They're like flat out zoomies, 20 minutes and then lie down again.
So that's when they're good. That's when they're
good.
So
that's basically us going off for a ride.
Oh mate, I look forward to seeing the dog lock coming out soon.
Weirdly, somebody, no word of a lie, somebody did pitch that to us a few years ago.
No way.
And I'm like,
wow,
there's
something in it.
There's something in it, but there's also a lot to go wrong. Like, how do you actually? Is it locked around their neck? How's this going to work?
The Z lock.
I
went for a guy called Ryan. He's from up your way, I think. And he had a dog. He had a Staffy, really, really fit dog, and he had to have a little belt around the dog, and he had all his trail tools in it. Brilliant. So anything goes wrong, he's just like clicks his fingers. This dog comes over with the pump, with the tools.
Well, does he give advice as well? You know, he did index those
line joints.
He was cool, Ryan. He was great. Anyway,
that's amazing.
Right, so if we're talking about the very start, I would imagine getting the name of the product out there. I think you did really well. I think you made something that isn't naturally cool, and I remember seeing it at Eurobike. Eurobike probably feels quite a long way from the trail.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How did you make people excited about your product? How did you make?
To be fair, I sort of, because I guess I was a little bit lucky having working for Troy at the time as well. I knew some of the guys in the industry. I knew sort of how the industry worked. So we sent some of the samples to the various magazines, and obviously the landscape's changed a little bit, but if people think a product's good, they will write about it. I mean, we had no marketing advertising budget. We still do things on a bit of a shoestring, but it was great. We were able to get in a few magazines with the product, which allowed us to then, talk to distributors and retailers and show them the articles, give them the product so they could use it. And then, in certain shops, guys that are working in the shops, if they like a product, then they start, sort of recommending it. So it was very organic, I would say, but just trying to do the right things in terms of the product and the branding and the communication. Yeah, I mean, the first time I went to Eurobike with Hiplok, not going for one of the other brands I've worked for in the past, we were sort of walking around with a suitcase.
Yeah.
that I'd set up a few meetings with distributors before, and it's like, you know, like bit Del Boy, you know.
Hey.
And then fast forward a year, first year we had our stand, we actually won the Eurobike award for our Hiplok Light, which was the sort of baby brother of the original one. So yeah, but like you say, things like trade shows and Eurobike, they're all, you know, that sort of landscape's changing a little bit now as well.
You kind of knew what you were doing at that point. You'd been to a lot of those things.
Yeah.
I actually came fresh out of the woods. So a lot of people listening to this, they won't have been to Eurobike. They won't know what we're on about. Eurobike's a big European trade show where all of the industry come and show their new products. And you have meetings with distributors, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
And press. And it's just how you... Back then, it's how you did... It's really how you launched the product. I came straight out of the woods to Eurobike. I had no idea the bike industry was... Really, when you said industry, I was just like, well, it's just loads of like people with scabs on their arms that are trying to flog stuff. I couldn't believe how much bigger it was. And how
exactly. Especially like you say, like the size of the European market as well. You're right. Like, especially where it used to be in Friedrichshafen in southern Germany, there's all these halls. And there was like, even bike geeks like us, there's brands that you've not heard of, and they're massive.
They got 200 grand stands.
And
True.
tons of bikes.
Like
you know,
Pete's
as in
bikes,
models,
and it's like the size of a building. And they've got a meeting hall in their stand. You're like, oh, Pete's bikes is a thing I see.
It's and like you say, it can be a bit overwhelming, but also quite inspiring that this sort of thing that you really are passionate about is actually a really big industry as well. But obviously that covers everything. It covers all genres, right? All types of bikes, and obviously we'd love the UK to have a more of a urban commuting scene, you know, separated bike lanes and all that stuff like they've got in Germany and the Netherlands and all that. So we still got quite a bit of work to do in the UK on that, I think.
When you say it's changing landscape, like what do you
just in terms of like back in the day when Eurobike, back in those days, there was also like Interbike, which was the American version in Vegas.
Yeah.
So there were two really big trade shows. Interbike doesn't exist anymore.
They were kind of the ones you had to be at, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I don't know, I guess, well, also one of the things that's happened is that a lot of the sort of big bike brands started just doing their own internal shows.
Yeah.
So for the trade shows, they obviously need to have a balance of big brands and smaller brands that are up and coming and small, you know.
Otherwise, it's a jumble sale.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, you know, there's quite a few of the bigger brands that have sort of pulled out of some of the trade shows over the last few years.
Yeah.
So, and obviously with the whole kind of way things going with tech and how people communicate with each other, it's just a different thing. I still love, I think it's really nice to be able to, you know, have a marker in the sand where you maybe a friend in the industry you've not seen for a year and you see them there. But that's not, you know.
You're not going to get them on Skype, are you? I think it's I agree. I think I actually look fondly back on those times because, like you say, there were 2 shows, there were 4 magazines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
yeah.
It was really very easy. Not easy at all, but like...
But it was exciting because you'd actually see stuff for the first time.
Yeah.
Whereas now...
Yeah, you probably...
65 days
most of the stuff's out.
Yeah. Information overload sort of thing. Yeah.
It is. I think,
my recent... structure, wasn't there?
Totally. My recent... even experience going to core bike, you just sort of walk around like, oh yeah, I've seen that. There's like nothing new. I feel like now it's just a meeting place. People meet up,
which has its own, you know,
which
has
is
its
great.
own value.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is definitely like everything else in the world. It sort of changes and develops. Some things are good, some things are bad, aren't they?
Was there a moment early on when you thought, oh, we're actually onto something, this is actually happening, or was it just just stressed as anything and it was...
You know what you know what it's like when you start something, you basically just, if you just got to keep looking ahead and moving forward.
Momentum.
Like what's the next thing? Yeah.
Did you go on the road?
Yeah. What you mean in terms of sort
sales?
Of, I mean, I mean, you have to, right? When you start in a business, you're kind of doing a bit of everything, right? Especially for the first few years. And then you kind of start to get the turnover where you can get the right people in the right places and start. So now it's brilliant. We've got a great team. There's loads of stuff I don't even sort of get involved with, which is wicked. But when you start, you're doing everything. Like you are literally doing everything.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Going on the road was I remember going on the road in the bike industry for the first time
Yeah.
with a bit of a baptism of fire.
Yeah, totally.
I bet.
People were just like, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
who are you?
Yeah, and to be honest, the bike, for all the stuff of like, I think the mountain bike scene is pretty cool, and it's very quite a welcoming area. I think in the bicycle industry overall, there can be a little bit of,
Yeah, for sure.
standoffishness a little bit
Yeah.
in certain areas. So yeah, walking into a shop blind or cold is not the easiest
Not
thing
easy
for
to
people
do.
No,
Not
at all.
easy to do.
In fact, we were just having this, obviously we're getting into the motorcycle side of things quite a bit at the moment because of all the top end security. Obviously, it's really good for motorcycles as well. And that's got a slightly different vibe. In terms of when you're walking into a shop, people are a bit, I don't know. There's just something about the bike industry. There's a little bit. People can be quite a little bit tunnel vision sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's an industry we've been in for a long time. So
Yeah.
it's
Nice
I love it.
USP though, isn't it? Anti-angle grinder.
yeah. It's I mean, yeah, we're really proud of that stuff. And when we decided to do it, it was, as I said before, it was a pretty big decision because again, it had to be more expensive than any other lock on the market because it costs so much more to make. So there's a kind of a commercial strategic thing going, is people going to get this? But as soon as people started doing independent tests on them and stuff and seeing how big the difference was, it was like, I literally had a WhatsApp this morning. We got a team Hiplok WhatsApp group, and Millie, one of our team, she's in doing a round of some bike shops today, and she was like, first time I walked in this bike shop this morning, the guy's like, manager of this bike shop, he's like, it was a bicycle shop, but he's like, your D1000 saved my Harley last week.
Wow.
And it's like, that's when you hear stuff like that, it's wicked.
Yeah.
Because it literally had to go, it started to cut it and bug it off.
Gave up.
Yeah.
How many discs do you reckon you got through testing those things?
Bloody hell, I don't know. It's funny because it's not a particularly pleasant thing testing them, because obviously it turns the disc to dust.
Yeah.
So I've done a few videos where kind of showing the comparison, and sort of look and you're just covered in this dust, because you've gone through 10 discs.
Yeah.
It's like, I need a shower. I've got this shit everywhere.
Do you publish what makes it?
It's a bit of a trade secret.
Yeah, I was going to say. I bet. Yeah.
It's a
And
composite.
How do you go about?
So we were actually started talking to him, sort of a material expert, some company that developed the composite material. But it's like everything. There were a few different ways to achieve similar results.
Yeah.
So we obviously started that genre of level of security, and now we've kind of led the way, and some of the other brands have kind of started to launch one or two products of their own, and everyone does things slightly differently. But yeah, it's kind of like under the radar a little bit.
It's like the KFC.
Yeah. The Colonel can't reveal his recipe.
The Hiplok Colonel. Secret blend of herbs and
The bow
spices.
tie.
I want to talk specifically about that lock.
Yeah.
And also obviously the evolution of Hiplok.
Yeah.
Right after this break. Ollie, 2025 is here. And let's be honest, mate, most New Year's resolutions barely make it past January the 10th. But we have consistently found one that is easy to stick with, and that is AG1.
AG1. Exactly. AG1 has been a game changer for thousands of people. One scoop every morning and boom, you've kickstarted your health for the day. It's like the easiest win you'll have all year.
Easiest win, is it? Yeah, it probably is. I have personally been using AG1 for around 3 years, and it's become such a key part of my morning routine. Personally, I either take it on its own, or sometimes I'll throw a scoop in with a protein shake, and it's just boom, it's done. One scoop, mix it up, and it feels like I've done something great for my body for eternity.
Nice. It's said to improve energy and focus. AG1 fuels your mornings, whether you're hitting the trails, the gym, or heading to work. It's also said to support gut health and immune defense. It's a no-brainer.
It is this time of year, mate. You need that immune defense. Yeah. We all know life gets busy, but AG1 makes health simple. It's delivered straight to your door every month, so you won't run out or forget. No more juggling a shelf full of supplements.
Absolutely. And if you're thinking about what habits to start or keep in 2025, Make AG1 the one. It's your daily dose of wellness in less time than it takes to make a coffee.
Exactly. Health is wealth, folks. So why not get optimized, cover your nutritional bases, and probably ride better?
Yeah, go with it.
Yeah,
Go with it,
yeah. So with AG1, you can get a free 1 year supply of vitamin D plus 5 free travel packs.
How?
Well, I'm going to tell you. If you head to drinkag1.com/ride companion, that's drinkag1.com/ride companion. The links are in the show description. Simply click those and it'll take you straight to the page where you can take advantage of this offer and be a more optimized human.
But it seems too easy.
Yeah,
A whole year of vitamin D.
Yeah, I mean,
and 5 free travel packs.
The sun.
So when
in a
you're
bottle.
moving around in the world, you can still
Yeah.
stay healthy.
5
Wow.
times.
Thanks, AG1.
Thanks, AG1.
Oh my goodness, Davey, I have had an absolute nightmare of a day. Yeah, I have. Basically, loads of people were saying I looked sick, so I went to the doctors and they actually said,
Yeah.
they said they think I'm really, really sick, maybe too sick.
Too sick.
Had a load of tests done.
Sickness test.
Yeah, they took blood, they put me through a scanner. Basically, came to the end of it and we realised there was nothing wrong with me. But what they were saying was I look too sick because of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got the kingpins on.
Dude,
I'll tell you what it is. I think the biggest change here is I've got the Vantage lenses on. So they're photochromic and they've still got trail enhancing tints.
So again,
Trail enhancing tints. Trail enhancing tints. That's right. So I'm actually... The good news is I'm okay, but there's nothing I can do about it. I just look too sick.
You're too sick.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
Nightmare.
It's a problem. And I guess people out there probably want to have the same issue, man. Maybe they want to look too sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sick with it, yeah.
Yeah, you're a 10 out of 10.
I think so. I think that's what the doctor said in the test. It said 10 out of 10, you look too sick.
Too sick.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I want to look too sick.
You already do, dude. You got the alley cats on and they've also got the Vantage lenses and they're
didn't
now
even know I had
available
them on.
they're now available. They were available before for order. Now they're available.
Yeah. You know what the problem was?
What?
I didn't know I had them on.
No, you
Because
don't.
they changed.
They change.
I know you
They changed.
can maybe not tell. I don't know. But like they've changed so that now I can see perfectly.
Dude, that's the
In all this
photochromic
light.
aspect. That's the photochromic aspect.
you-
It's incredible. And not only that, they still come, you can customize them fully on the website.
You can.
You've got your computer there. You should try and do it now.
I am actually on melonoptics.com website. I'm going to get myself another pair of alley cats like
Oh, yeah,
this,
you like
all
the
right?
alley cats.
I like
Yeah,
the alley
yeah.
cat. I feel an alley cat kind of vibe, all right? So I can get a nice black frame.
Yeah,
I can get a nice white frame.
Nice.
I can even get a sort of like speckled 90s looking.
That's what I've got on the kingpins.
Oh, they are
These
too
are the
sick.
kingpins, which is also what they used to call me at school.
The kingpin.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe I want to have a different coloured lens as well. I could get myself a blue chrome, photochromic,
It's still photochromic.
with trail enhancing tints.
Trail enhancing tints. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You could get yourself a red chrome. You could get yourself a silver chrome.
But
or
wait,
you
do
could-
they still, all of those, they still have
Mate, yeah, they got the Vantage lens, the photochromic.
with
Trail enhancing tints.
And also, the thing is, it doesn't stop there. You can fully customize them, and
Yeah.
they still come in this carry case, which is crucial when you've got it rattling around in your van or your car.
True.
Inside,
Yep.
you've then got your microfiber cloth.
Yes.
And you've got gaps for where you can put spare lenses.
Yes.
Stick them on the order. Why not?
Stick them on the order. Why not? Or you know what you could do? You could use our discount code, which is
Dude.
the Ride Companion. And guess what?
What?
We're going to throw in a free low light lens.
No way.
Yeah, we
what,
are.
for free?
Yeah, and it's got
Trail
Trail
enhancing
enhancing
tints.
tints.
That's so good.
yeah, and we're also going to throw in a free lens cleaning kit. Because I don't know about you, but I'll finger these lenses. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
We'll foot thumbprint them up. You know.
There's enough room in this little carry case that you can put all your gizmos and all your whatnots and your tidbits.
Yeah.
You can put them straight in there.
Yeah.
And you just zip it up. You're ready to go in the worst conditions or the best conditions. Because of the photochromic, it does both.
Yeah, and perfect for the UK riding conditions.
That's right.
All right. Trail enhancing tints.
Yeah, let's do that a bit more. Trail enhancing tints. Trail enhancing tints.
Okay.
Davey, what's the code?
The code is The Ride Companion. Head to melonoptics.com, enter the code the Ride Companion. That's going to get you a free lens cleaning kit, and it's also going to give you a free low light lens. These are available right now. So stop squinting. I tell you what, stop riding with midges in your eyes.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Green flies, midges, bees, wasps, all the animals.
That's right.
Get yourself some trail enhancing tints. I
Yeah.
can't say it.
Yeah. Also, these are available across the board. The Vantage lens is available on everything, right?
Yeah, across
whether
the
it's
board.
Kingpins, Alley Cats.
Yep, Alley Cat, RX, all of them. They're all available.
Really?
Trail enhancing tints,
Trail
Vantage
enhancing
lens.
tints.
Yep, Jesters, I think, everything.
Also, might as well put in the comments below what your favourite shape is, whether it's Kingpin, Alley Cat. Regardless,
Square.
you're getting the Vantage lenses. Stick it below and just say what you like.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, extra bonus points if you can type trail enhancing tints in the comments section.
As fast as you can. You have to do it really fast.
All right, anyway, the Ride Companion. Get yourself some free stuff. melonoptics.com. Big up.
Thanks, Melon.
Trail enhancing tints. Trail enhancing.
Ooh, we're back in.
Oh, we're back in. All right, so we were talking about the evolution of Hiplok. So you started off with that single product. Who and what was your first hire?
I think so. My wife Fran, she joined the company super early. I don't
By
know.
choice?
Pardon?
By choice?
By choice, yeah. Just had to come and sort me and John out. Yeah. It just sort of worked. It just sort of, she's brilliant. She was actually from the dark side. She was like in the car industry for a long time. So she's like, I say dark side, I was joking. But like she worked she was actually the reason that I had the opportunity to go to Cali, because she managed to she had the opportunity to transfer from the UK to the American office. She was working for like Aston Martin at the time.
Okay.
So then we came back, and then within, I don't know, a year, she joined Hiplok.
Cool.
So yeah, you know what? I'm not actually, this is really bad actually. Can't actually remember who the first hire
patient
was.
0 to patient 1. Patient 2? Patient
I
3.
can name everybody, but I'm just not sure.
So yeah, started off with that one product. When did you start then trying to build the range out into more products?
Pretty much straight away, pretty much
Really, yeah.
early doors, because we, like you were saying before, you don't want to have, you want one thing that does something really well, but obviously security sounds a bit obvious, but you've got a bit of, I call it like the top trumps, right? You've got security versus weight versus price versus, you can't have a dead light lot that's dead strong, right? I mean, it's just kind of, it sounds obvious, but so we knew that like in certain places in Europe or Japan where security is not as much of an issue, so the next thing we did was do the lighter weight version of the original product.
Okay.
And then we're like, actually D-locks are a big part of the market, and we wanted to bring a bit of wearability to because the whole premise originally, like I said before, was like, if you're going into town or you just, wherever you're going, you'd like, just all you need is your bike and your lock, versus, I need a bracket on my bike, or I need a wearing a bag to take your lock with you. That was the whole kind of premise of the wearable thing. So the wearable thing was the thing that we wanted to really innovate in for the first couple of years. Okay. Do different types of locks based on that premise.
So excuse my ignorance, because I don't remember the first Hiplok as well as Ollie definitely does. Did you bring a show and tell of the first one or not?
I think, you know what, I think I brought,
Okay, perfect. We'll do a show and tell. That'd be exciting, and we'll do a
love a show and
really
tell.
nice description.
Yeah,
of
audio description coming up.
Exactly
Okay.
what you've brought.
This is a
Ben's reaching into a box.
I'm reaching into a box, and the microphone's well away. So sorry about that. But yeah, for people who can see on the TV, this was actually TV. That's how old do I sound? The TV. But yeah, so the whole premise of the original one, was that it's a chain lock, but like the sort of magic happens. We've got a pattern around this sort of buckle idea. So when you're wearing it, you basically just pass the Velcro through. It's never locked to you, and it's like adjustable like a belt.
Okay, right.
And then you come to lock it, and you've got a chain lock's great, because it's, 1 minute you might be locking around a bike rack, next thing you want to get it around a tree, or just flexibility. You've got, so you got quite a bit of flexibility. So this was like the original design, and we still sell a version of this. It's kind of detuned, logo's not as big and stuff, and there's been different iterations with key bells and stuff, but the basic the basic idea is still the same. We still do 3 models like this.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, this is a good. When I was like kind of going through just grabbing the box here, our little library at the office, it reminded me basically when we first designed it, I wanted it to be like getting a new pair of trainers. So we did it in a box,
cool.
right? And then within about a couple of months, when we started getting them into shops, we were like, the box terrible, because they were just sat in boxes like most
Yeah, no one
products
can
are
see
like on a
anything.
hang tag or a header card or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're like, that was our first mistake.
Okay.
yeah.
It's got to be fascinating because you got to learn
Yeah.
so much, not only about like this process here, but also about your customer base.
100%. And also, and buying habits, and and retailers, and and how it, and there's stuff that can, like in any business, there's no way of knowing it until you learn it, sort of thing. Sometimes, that in hindsight was probably a pretty predictable one, but
But at the time, you wouldn't know, would you? Like, You're still trying to figure it
and
out.
actually, ironically, obviously with the growth of sort of, we're as a brand, we're multi-channel, so we have distribution partners through the world, but we also, have sort of people can get stuff directly from us. So actually, but also all types of packaging is really important, right? You want people see it if they go in a shop, but also it needs to work if it's shipping. So all of that stuff you've got to think about.
I seem to think of using bikes bikes as an example. There was a huge shift into direct to consumer market a few years ago. But you originally started like that, is that correct? So you originally started direct.
We were sort of omni-channel straight away. So we didn't. And I think most brands now, you have to have a balance of, because everybody wants to shop in different ways, right? So
definitely.
So but one of the obviously when the disruption bit on the bicycle side, obviously when you sort of canyons of the world and stuff basically went right, we're only going D2C. That was obviously a big shift for the industry.
Yeah.
But as a multi-channel brand like us, we have to work out what it costs us to make it and what it would be costing a shop with all of the steps in the way in terms of distributors, and because everybody needs to make a margin for it to work. Yeah. So you do, if you price something only for a D2C model, then it wouldn't work in the other channels, right? Because it just, people wouldn't stock the product. So as a brand, we definitely believe in supporting shops and retailers, but at the same time giving people a choice of where they can get it from.
So in the early days of launching Hiplok, like what were some of the biggest product wins and just wins in general? Like how obviously this thing has worked really well, right? It's a big company. So,
I think if you ask John or any of the team as well, like one of the things we're really proud of is we've kind of created sectors that other companies that are much bigger than us, it would have probably had to go through like 100 chains of command and get knocked down from the top. It's like, why would we want to do that? There's no market for that. Actually, we've created markets. So things like probably quite a few people know are like little Z-locks and stuff, or Ziplocks. That didn't exist. That product did not exist in the world until me and John, like one night, kind of late in the office, drawing up this idea, and we're like, I think that could work. Like,
right.
And they're the sort of really cool moments. Obviously, getting it to manufacture and selling it is like painful. Yeah. But actually, that moment of drawing it up on a board and then seeing it come to market, and then see, because these things are dead handy, right? You can use them for all sorts. Just have them with you all the time, locking up your bike for a quick stop or helmet or whatever, or camping and stuff.
Yeah. Well, good for bike racks, aren't they? Because you're sort of looking out the window anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And as I say, we just kind of managed to create a really useful product here, and it's funny because we there's a few copycats kicking around now of these bad boys. So
I bet.
What did they say about flattery?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
one of them.
Obviously, a nice thing.
It's cool. We both had good experiences with those recently. I know that sounds really salesy.
Oh, good.
I just did a gravel ride.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And took a Z-Lock with me.
Yeah, wicked.
So that was around chained 2 bikes together, or Zedded? What do you say?
Yeah.
Z'd?
Well,
We Z'd 2 locks
there's actually
together.
a backstory to that, because probably because of my time in the States, we call it Z-Lock, but obviously we're English, right? It's Z-Lock really, but we call it Z-Lock in-house.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I was coming back, I was back in England for a week or two, and I was like, me and my mates were having a beer around a table. We're talking about cars. And I remember saying, the 350Z. And I said 350Z. And literally, it's like tumbleweeds. And all my mates are like, dickhead, you've changed. I was like, what did I do? Because there are those subtle things in the States. And when you've been there, you live in a place long enough, it's inevitable that you sort of say things a little bit differently otherwise.
Definitely.
It's like trying to order a glass of water in the States. If you're northern, you have to ask about 5 times and eventually say water.
Water.
And you're like, no, I don't want to do it, but I really want a glass of water.
I met a bloke the other day. He was from Chiswick in London.
All right.
And he had like a Chiswick in London accent, but he'd been in Vienna for 17 years, so it was the weirdest, it was the strangest sounding accent. You could tell he was like enjoying speaking English. He's obviously fluent in German as well, but like he had this weird sort of like slightly Borat-y.
Really?
Like, do you know what I mean? Like he went from like geezer to just like a little bit Borat-y as well. It was well funny. It's super interesting.
Yeah. So it can't have all been like super plain sailing at the start. What were some of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome?
Let's hear some bad ones.
Let's hear some clangers, dude. Clanger products.
I'll tell you a good one, actually. I was sort of kind of mentioned before, when I remember being on the phone to John at lunch, and we'd put our order in for these first padlocks for the first, we called it the V150, but it's a Hiplok original.
Right.
We'd bought them, and and then they failed the test, like the sold secure test, because this factory had kind of not promised what we delivered, and that was suddenly like, we've got a few thousand padlocks that we can't use. Like, that's not a nice feeling. But you learn a few lessons early on. And then I remember another one, and John, bless him, because I was still in Cali, we'd done this. When you're starting off with like a new product, a new brand, some buyers in stores, some people will try and say, we'll take it, but only if we've got it exclusively for a little while, right? And that's a bit of a difficult one to manage, because you do want to do it, but that you can't be reliant on one. For a product to work, especially something that's like a lock, it needs to be in a lot of different places, right? So anyway, we said we'd give this shop in London exclusive for a week or two. John piles down central London as well, it's like stuck in traffic and all this. Gets into his shop with a boot full of flipping locks, and the guy's basically, we've got cash flow issues or something, or we can't take them. You know what I mean? He's like, literally, like, this is part of a launch thing. It's like stuff like, so it's things like that.
Yeah.
That it's beyond your control, but you learn pretty quick that you've got to think about things a little bit more strategically.
How did you go about figuring out? That's quite interesting about getting it, like all of the certificates and
that's
and this and that.
That's a massive part of it, obviously, on security, because we didn't want people to think, that's a cool idea, but it's not a very good lock. Like, so the original one, probably people out there that have insured the bikes know, like, there's a thing called Sold Secure in the UK, and they're independent graders, so they're part of the Locksmith Association, work with the police, insurance companies, so they independently test locks.
Right.
And we'll work with them as well quite closely to test our product, and then you've got to it's got to be certified by them individually, and then other countries have it as well.
Okay.
So there's stuff like ART in the Netherlands, because obviously they've got a big kind of bike theft issue. But as a brand, we have to pay and certify the products in all these different categories.
Okay.
So is
it different levels of it?
Yeah, different levels.
Around,
so in like Sold Secure,
markets.
you've got like bronze to diamond on bicycle, same for motorbike, and they all they all have to pass different attack tests, and then you've got different ones all over the world.
Okay.
But it's really good from a consumer's point of view, obviously, because you kind of, anyone can say this stuff's good, right? But actually having an independent test that is recertified every year, so that's an important part. And it's actually quite, it makes the development of the locks, like the high security ones, pretty tricky, because you've got to know that it's going to pass before, there's a balance of going to full production versus not, because the last thing you want is a factory full of locks.
So they'll get like a sample first.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to have multiple
go.
samples.
Right.
So there's always risk there that it's right. But stuff like our 1000 series, this anti-angle grinder stuff is like, it's kind of next level beyond those certifications. Because as I say, things move on in terms of the tool list, right? The attack list.
Yeah.
It feels quite like competitive. And you mentioned about the patent early on.
Yeah.
How do you make your idea safe?
Well,
I've never got anything patented. What names I have with DMR.
Okay, yeah,
names,
like trademarks and stuff.
Yeah, in terms of an actual product, how do you make it so it's uncopyable?
Well, there's always a million ways to skin a cat, right? So it depends, and some people make the mistake of trying to patent something that you can just do it a different way and get the same result. Yeah. So there's not all of our products have patents, because actually sometimes just being first to market and having the best product is the best way. Sometimes you might want to protect something fundamental because it's fundamental to the product.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it varies a little bit. So we've got patents on some products, we haven't got them on others. But also you've got to be willing to, it's a bit like that saying, like, in any sort of legal battle, like we were just talking about during the ad break, lawyers win, right? Lawyers are the ones making the money when there's a legal battle.
Yeah.
So you've got to be prepared to sort of defend it as well.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So it's actually only the start point by patenting.
Yeah. So sometimes they have massive value and sometimes they don't. It really depends on the product and the situation, really.
I guess the masters are like, I'm sure there's people listening there just like, why are they talking about patents? But it is interesting when you actually realise how much difference it makes. So like Shimano patented the SPD. Yeah. And then the day that the patent ran out, we had already developed a DMR V-twin, for instance. Yep. That came out like the day that the Shimano patent. Yeah, so they must have managed to patent something so...
Well, basically, the last, I think it's 25 or 30 years. So, yeah, the patent doesn't last forever. Yeah. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, as I say, we've definitely benefited from it on some products. And then there's other products where we're like, is it worth it, or should we just get it out there? And
because it's costly, right?
Yeah. And there's no guarantee that, because you might say, we think this is patentable, but a big part of the process is your patent lawyer going, yeah, you might have a chance, but this is all prior art. And some of the things that is really cheeky is sometimes people, there's a whole industry, I think, about this in the States, patenting stuff almost as a blocker for other people doing it. Yeah. Which just seems a negative on progress in general.
Yeah, I see that.
What do you mean? How would that work?
So they'll have an idea, they've got not necessarily planning to do the product themselves. But like put a patent in it and try and make it very broad, so that if you do infringe the patent, because that's the other thing
then you've got a lawsuit.
Yeah, because that's the other thing about getting a patent is like or not getting a patent. It's like whether you're infringing on somebody else's patent. So when you launch a new product, you might end up spending some money to check you're not infringing a patent as well.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah. So, again, SRAM and Shimano do this all the time, because often there'll be like news pieces on this idea. Yeah. And it might be an idea that's just put out there to block.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? To stop someone else doing something like even similar. They might not actually have any need or want to actually do it.
I mean, it's like, we've been over the years, once you've got a bit of a name and seen as, we've been approached by people that have kind of got an idea for a product and they might have a patent on it, they might not. And we're about, look, we'll happily look at it, but we can't, there's this weird thing of like, well, it's not just about it's about everything, like we were talking about before, the manufacturing of it. Would it work for a certain price point, all of this stuff. So it's not always just about the product and the idea, it's like the commerciality of it as well. Would it actually work? And sometimes you just have to say to people, thanks, but thanks for sharing your idea, but it's not something we can kind of crack on.
It's I guess obviously you're a global business, import and ship a lot of product, so how much do you pay attention? This is a kooky question, but like to like the global economy at the moment. And also, I guess you're buying a lot of metal.
Oh, totally.
So how much does that impact your day-to-day business?
Well, that is a massively poignant question right now, right? Because of the America, the tariff thing. Obviously, I think this is the wildest time I think since we started the business.
Really?
Because the global. I mean, it's literally. I think that it's changed on the drive down here this morning. But all of our stuff is all designed, developed in England at Hiplok HQ. But our stuff is near most of it's made in China. I mean, we'd love to make some stuff in the UK, but for locks, it just doesn't work.
Okay.
From a steel, like you say, steel prices. But America's our second biggest market, and obviously the whole tariff thing. So that's massive, right? Like the whole war thing that Trump started, 145% tariff on a product. That's just put a halt to people selling stuff in the States right now. It's going to change.
Could you explain it just for a total layman? Like, like, where is that tariff?
So
sorry if it's a little.
No, not at all.
Hopefully, people listening
I might not answer the question very well either. But, but basically, for a tariff, that is the tax that a person is paying to bring that product in, right? So in our case, if we've got a distributor in the States or a distributor for any product, and they're buying it from another business, it doesn't even matter where that business is. So it might be an American business that has their stuff made in China. They're still going to get hit the tariff. In our case, we're an English business, but our stuff gets made in China. It's still made in China, so it's still going to be hit by the tariff.
Right.
So that means that the importer, the distributor, pays this tariff. But when normally there's tariffs on everything, is a few percent, and it's part of, you factor it into your shipping costs, everything that people calculate. Then, okay, what can I sell it to a shop for? What can the shop sell it to a consumer for? Right. But when this tariff goes completely bonkers, suddenly that's into everybody's margin. There's no business there. I mean, there's companies like literally in the States that have their stuff made in China, and they're like frozen. Frozen because they can't afford to bring it over. They don't know what's going to happen.
And you can't put your costs up because then the product won't sell.
Yeah, or you might have to cut, or you might have to reduce your product cost to try and keep it competitive, or increase the retail price. The way the tariffs are set at the minute, you'd need to do both. Like, it's suddenly, I don't know, it was really interesting. Like on the iPhone stuff, suddenly there's an exemption for all the electronics because obviously they've got a huge amount of power in the States. Because people can't afford to, 1 minute an iPhone's 1,500 and next minute it's $6,000 or something. Yeah, that's just not sustainable.
Is that what we're talking here? We're talking like one of your containers, let's say one full of Z-locks.
Yeah,
we're talking what percentage change are we talking on the tariff? Because I'm not up.
So in the States, the whole thing, when it went ballistic, bearing in mind a normal tariff maybe might have been 2%, 5%, 0%, 10%.
Which still is eating out of your profit.
Yeah, or it's just part of what people, cost of doing business for the distributor. So 145% with the Trump. So this morning it's literally gone down to 30, but that's still 10, 20 times more than it was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it is mad.
I guess those tariffs also impact your lead time, because if you're ordering stuff, how long?
Yeah, well, the thing is, if people,
so then you have to sit on stock.
Yeah, if people are cancelling orders because they're waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Then that whole kind of delays loads of different stuff. It is pretty mad. Mad. Fortunately, we're a company that sells around the world, but there are companies in the States that only sell in the States and get their products made in China. I mean, it's nothing new. We've all been, pretty much everything that we've seen in this room's made in China.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
Wow. So I find it really. I honestly don't know enough about it. What I think is really interesting is we're all sat here as bikers, but you're actually in this world that I never really talk to people that are in. On this sort of scale.
Yeah, sure.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So to get it from you is interesting. So it actually relates back to what we actually do talk about here.
100%. So. Yeah. And it's a big thing for the I think I won't name any names, but I think there's quite a big bike company that had recently moved their manufacture to a country, and now but because of this whole tariff thing into the States, it's a bit of a lottery at the moment. Nobody knows where it's going to land, really. So it's
What have you seen as well? You've been doing this a while, as far as bike theft and the increase.
Yeah,
over the years, hence why you're having to make more products.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing is obviously, especially on the mountain bikes, well, on all sides, there's more money in bikes, right?
Yeah.
E-bikes, just the growth of road bikes, and like sort of, especially, I guess past Olympics, past COVID. COVID? I don't know what COVID is. But I kind of call road biking the new golf a little bit as well, right? Nowadays, the sort of the 40, 50-year-old guy.
Oh, I'd say e-biking's the new golf personally as
well.
well,
Both. Yeah, it depends where you. But people dropping a lot of money on, but so that is, unfortunately, makes it makes it more attractive for these thieves to be stealing these bikes, even though a lot of theft on the street probably doesn't matter what the guys are just looking to nick a bike.
Opportunists.
But these exactly. But then there's that other level of professional that are like targeting certain bikes and certain people. So unfortunately, I think it has been growing, and hence the need for kind of going a bit, looking at it with a new lens in terms of how well you can stand up to stuff.
I think a lot of people listening or watching this will relate. Like you say, you go out and you spend, let's just say $6,000 on a bike, but then you hesitate at buying a £100 lock.
Yeah, it is pretty mad.
It's so crazy, and I am guilty for that. 100% forever. And same with motocross bikes over the years and whatever. Always you'll spend the money on the bike, but then you're like not willing to.
Totally. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's like once the horse is bolted, you realise, and that's what we've tried to do a bit with Hiplok, is like try and make the product good enough that people will want to use it and people kind of understand it and attract it. Because we always say like security is like, it's a need, not a want product.
Yeah.
It's not like a new carbon. It's not going to make you faster. It's not going to make you look cooler necessarily, like a new set of gear will or whatever. But actually, it is a really kind of functional, important product. So we've always tried to like be a bit more interesting maybe than some of the other guys. So if the product's a bit more interesting, people might.
It's actually quite a marketing challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally,
trying to get that across in a way of, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, without being salesy, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I think just to start with, having everything look nicely presented.
Yes.
I mean, I struggled to talk about it without any of this sounding like an ad. And it actually genuinely isn't. Like the graphic design, for instance. You can make a product. There's so many different ways you can make a product that you might not have thought you were interested in.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. A bit of attention to detail that's what we've tried to do. That's why because we started as designers and riders, not security guys.
Okay, yeah.
What I mean? That's the sort of, and we learned about security along the way.
Yeah.
Versus, a lot of other people, it's like they're security companies and they do some bike locks. I suppose that's a bit of a, if you know what I mean, like there's a slightly different way of
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, mate. It's so interesting. So what's going on at Hiplok now? Are you working on anything new? Again, D1000. I want to talk about that because it is actually a fascinating product. So let's go back to that. So when did you come up with the idea of making an angle grinder free?
I think it was about
free. You know what I mean?
2021 when we first started talking about it, I think.
And there's this rise in angle grinders being used.
Because basically, obviously, as battery, like everything, as battery tech's got way better, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, angle grinders can be battery powered rather than mains powered, which I'm sure everybody's seen on BBC or YouTube. These flipping scumbags just roaming around the streets, just cutting locks off with angle grinders because obviously go through. So it came from that. Okay. So this material company that we started working with, they had this material that they thought could do the job, and then we spent probably 18 months working on actually building the lock around it, because it's all like I said about top trumps before. It's all well and good it being really good against one attack method, but if you can just pick the lock and you can just bash it with that when it falls apart. So it's got to withstand all attack methods. So that's where we came from. So there's probably 18 months, 2 years of development in that, getting that right. Because it's also, you got to productionize it as well, right? You can't just go, oh, that one works.
Yeah.
And then you've got to, it needs to work time and time again on the production line.
I remember Elon talking about that. It's all right, you can build in one car, but then you've got to make it a production.
Manufacture is
that's the hardest.
Exactly. Bit. Because anyone can do it.
You could build a one-off
a little bit. And make it. and make it consistent and all the rest of it. And then, yeah, the whole thing of solving that problem was really that out on the streets bit. But then a big part of security is also once people are in your private property, in your garage, in your shed, in your house or whatever, they've got a little bit more time potentially as well. So actually doing home security that has the same level of defense was the next thing we did.
Okay.
And that's where now it works as well for motorbikes as it does for bikes. And also the flipping price of, you know, 10 grand. If you actually look at the retail price of the motorbikes versus e-bikes and stuff, it's basically the same.
Yeah, it is.
It's mad.
It is nuts. It is nuts.
So yeah, some of the new products we're working on at the minute, we're going to do our very first motorbike specific product coming out this year.
So is motorbike market quite new for you still?
Yeah, it's only the last couple of years.
Interesting.
And that's on the strength of these new products, really. Because we wanted to go into that market with market leading stuff.
Right.
And the demands, it's been a pull. Like, what, you know, you kind of rather than a push of a pull, it's been a pull from the market wanting the product because of sort of how good it was.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Like, the first time we're doing a motorbike specific product this year, because everything else is crossover. It works for sort of works for both. Because there are differences, right? You know, like a motorbike weighs a ton.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of stealing it. Like we always say in the bikes, get round the frame, right? Because secure the wheels and stuff, but the frame is the most expensive bit. So be locking that. But in motorcycle, you know, if they take a wheel off, they've then got to pick up and move this really heavy thing.
Yeah.
So there are subtle differences to the kind of security.
Yeah, as you see a lot of disc
things.
locks and stuff in
Exactly.
moto, don't you?
Yeah.
Again, because
We believe in modular as well. Like disc lock's good for some things, but you might want to be locking up to a post as well. So it's all about layers basically.
Yeah.
And where you are.
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to smash this one out of the park.
Yeah, go on then.
Top 3 products you'd recommend at this moment for a mountain biker from the Hiplok range.
Oof.
Yeah, mountain bike specific. That's nice.
Thank you.
Ooh, definitely just have a Z-Lock with you.
Z-Lock.
Z-Lock.
I like it. You've gone for one of the cheapest products as well, so I love your style.
Because it's brilliant. Because like literally, we've all been there where you want to pop in for a quick toilet break or a cafe, and like you know what these guys are like. They just snatch. If it's something just, you know, somebody that's not tooled up, he's just looking to snatch a bike. They're brilliant. Yeah. Super light. And then it sounds super. Yeah, it does sound salesy, but this thing which I'm pointing at. It's called the AX1000.
Yes.
It's like replaces a massive chain at home.
Okay, we have one down there as well.
Yeah, you can bolt that into your floor or your wall and then use it with the top end D-locks. And that is basically better than any chain you can buy by a factor of a lot.
Okay.
And it's like 2 products in one because it's an anchor and replaces a chain. And that's got all your anti-angle kind of stuff. So if you're sat on, you know, you've got a good few grand's with a V-bike or mountain bike, like you said before, a few £100 on that stuff is actually a pretty good investment.
Definitely.
And the cool thing is with that, you can actually lock a couple of bikes up with that as well.
Okay.
You know, so you don't need just one per bike.
So you put one in the middle.
Yeah, you put
2
one in the
bikes
middle
at
and
each
put
side.
it through or thread them through. So yeah, you've kind of, that's the 2 ends of the spectrum. Our lightest weight product when you're out and about, and the top notch stuff.
Love it.
And another one. We have a thing called the organizer, which is like not a lock at all, but I love it. I've got loads of them at home. We basically, it's just like basic organizer, but it's designed for bike gear. So you can throw your helmet in, throw your shoes in, throw your sort of air cartridges because I don't know about you, like when I get home or I'm about to go for a ride, I'm searching around the house for stuff that I just dumped. Yeah. So you just throw it all in one place. That's pretty cool.
So it's like goes in your garage and it's got
garage, back of the van, and it works with our airlock and stuff. So yeah, we've got a few accessories that are not technically security, but they all work with security as well.
They're just things that you wanted to make.
Basically,
you made them.
yeah. The Troy Lee approach. Yeah.
That sounds the dream, dude. Sounds the dream.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think we've covered a pretty good arc of the Hiplok story.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been
super
wicked
interesting.
actually talking about it. Yeah, it was super fun.
Super interesting.
No, thanks for having me. It's been really cool. It's great to see the new setup and everything.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate you. What is next for Hiplok? Is there anything on the horizon that you can talk about? The
motorbike thing.
Yes.
The next thing, and then we've always got stuff in the pipe. But some of the new products are only just hit as well. So things like a little tracking the news Elox stuff. That's really cool to see the reception that those things are getting. So yeah, watch this space.
There is one thing I forgot to ask you. What's the size of Hiplok now? Like, what's the team size? Like, how have you? Because we spoke about growing it, but like, how have you?
We're a pretty tight little business in terms of the actual staff. We're about 16, 17 people. So not a big. We're not a massive. We're not a massive team, but we're a really quite a nice size at the minute. But obviously, we've got teams in the factories and stuff. But that's all the kind of the heads at Hiplok HQ, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And how long have you been going?
2011 we first started. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Me and John think of it as like 2009 because me and him were like mucking about, as I said before,
Already
with like samples and stuff. But we launched it March 2011.
Okay.
Is what I think about. Yeah, and we like the way we started it. We just did a sort of little video. Actually, we were talking about Venice Beach before.
Yeah.
I had a little truck at the time, and we hired a mate who was a bit of a camera guy, and we just went around Venice Beach, like avoiding the cops because I was late. The camera guy was laying in the back of the pickup when I was driving. Just shot this, and that was it. That's how we launched.
Really?
Believe it or not, yeah.
I think it's cool, man, because it for me, Hiplok's kind of like a household name. It's like the Hoover of locks, right? And so to actually learn more about the journey of it and the person and the people behind, I think it's just cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's nice to have the opportunity to sit and do it.
Yeah,
it's inspiring. One day maybe I'll carry through one of my ideas.
I bet you've got
Of which there are
that's too many
loads.
ideas.
we can make a top 10 list off when we finish.
Yeah, you'll do 'em.
Yeah, those people hitting him up, they're all like, you? Nah, mate, we're good for that one.
No, thanks for calling.
Oh, what? I wanted a chocolate log. No.
Chocolate logs? No, you won't know.
Wicked. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thanks for listening. Of
Peace
course, there's an offer in the show description as well. 20% off.
Oh, yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, almost forgot to get that in
Head
there.
down there.
Head
Nice.
down there. It's in the show description. 20% off.
Yeah, wicked. Awesome.
Big up.
Peace and love.
Like and subscribe. Mate, what an episode.
Brilliant. I thought you were really great, Davey.
Mate, and I thought you were even better.
Thanks, dude.
Better
Thanks,
than
dude.
normal.
Oh, cheers.
Hey, how about we tell our lovely podcast community to hit subscribe here.
Yeah,
Click on the video on Olly's face.
that's right.
Click on the video on my face.
Yeah.
And follow us at The Right Companion on Instagram.
They can like and comment as well.
Please do.
I'm going to try and get this energy and I'm going to bring it into next week.
Let's fast forward to next week's episode.
Done.